question. They said they're ready for anything and everything. Sorry, I've got related with that we taught at prison. Jill, yes.
Myself?
You said that your whole thing is you wanted kids to go to college, just like you didn't have a chance. I was wondering if any of your kids did end up going to college.
So his question is, he wants to know if any of my students did go to college. And from what I know, I did have 2 of my students that did end up going to college. Some of them, obviously, with whatever situations they had to have different lifestyles. But 2 of them did. It was a lot of pushing on my part to make sure that they either got their high school diploma or their GED done. And it's a lot of having somebody believe in them. Literally having somebody believe in them.
So as a classroom teacher, I used to make home visits to every one of my students' homes. And I taught in downtown LA with students that were just like me, emergent bilinguals, and every one of my students were students of color. My first class was about 20 years ago, and I just got a text yesterday asking from a student for my first year teaching if I'll go to her bridal shower. My response is, you really want your teacher there? But it's been, I think, the greatest honor for me to see the impact that we make and to realize that we don't teach math. We teach children. We teach real people. And I would say still today, I teach at Chapman University, and every year, my first cohort, I also teach a course on multicultural education. My students from my first year teaching 20 years back, many of them live in San Diego, have careers of their own. They'll come and they'll teach with me and share with the pre-service teachers how important teachers are and how much they remember the little things that we do.
How am I supposed to tell them to ask, am I going to use this? And I know for a fact how do I say you have to learn it because you have to without saying that? From us
non-down. Okay. So so the question was, I teach algebra, and they'll go, why am I learning this? And there's aspects of it where it may not be as relevant to their daily lives. Did I do an okay job summarizing that? Okay. I love algebra. I'll be honest with you. I was at Monterey County just 2 days ago, and I started working with a bunch of parents and kids, and I started with the magic trick. I'm like, I want you to say a number in your head, 1 to 10, right? Through a series of steps, I look around the room, I'm like, your final number, I can read your mind, your number is 1. And all the parents are like, oh my gosh, Catherine Ye's a mind reader. Then we take out algebra tiles, and I show them, they do it, and they prove how, algebraically, I can prove how I was able to get to everybody's 1. So I think that we have to unlearn how we learned. I love algebra because it's a generalization of things in the world. It helps us make sense of patterns and relationships. But the problem is, I have got a kid right now in 6th grade that's in algebra. They've been finding X for 4 months, right? It's on the paper. At no time have they connected contexts. So we have to help ourselves and help each other to find the relevancy, find the tools, so that we can learn from each other and fix the harm that was done to us when we were learning algebra. That's just one perspective. She like that.
Can I jump in and just share an example similar to that? I had students in 7th grade learning algebra who did not care so much about variables, but they cared about things like quinceañeras. They had older siblings, they were thinking ahead to their own time when they might have a quinceañera. And so the problem they explored was comparing two different venues that they might host this event at, and they had different pricing rates. And they had to use mathematics, use algebraic reasoning to figure out how to compare those, and it ended up as two linear equations that they figured out, well, depending on the number of people, one might be better than the other. But they realized how useful that kind of thinking really was. So I think you're right, it's about the context, not the mathematics. Often in the textbooks that we have, the context has been trivialized or even removed completely, and that's where we run into the question of why am I doing this?
So the big common core and all this hands-on real life, they don't really go hand in hand. I'm so-called number one with the math person. I grew up in a system where common core was kindergarten, 12th grade, and to college. I love it. I know. I dream it. Now, how do you adapt all this hands-on to the common core? I had master teachers telling me and principals like, no, you can't do all this manipulatives. You can't do all that. It's not in your common core book right now. Go back to the standard and follow the lesson. And the kids weren't getting it. But having hands-on data, so what do we do with that?
So I guess the question would be, how do you teach math in the Common Core when you're being told not to use manipulatives? So I don't know who or how where you came across that. I think Common Core actually is hands-on. It is manipulatives. It is CGI. We use sets where it's like, okay, students, how many shoes do we have in the room? How many math problems can we solve in a day? Or finding there's a bag of marbles. How many marbles are there? And math doesn't have to be an algorithm. Math has to be conceptual understanding. And I think using the manipulatives, using the hands-on learning, providing them with multiple opportunities, whether it be drawing pictures, dots, manipulatives, whatever you can do to get them to understand and tying it back to the algorithm helps them to develop that conceptual understanding.
And the student didn't follow the steps as stated, solve it with step number one. They were like, no, you can give it back. So it's just maybe I was told to not do it the right way. I do like the hands-on. I think students learn more with it. I want to implement it every lesson. But they tell me no, they didn't ask them to solve it that way. They didn't follow the algorithm to solve it. They got the right answer, but not the way I asked them.
I guess for me as a principal, what I would say the beauty of the Common Core is there is no right way to solve it. It is about the 15 different ways to solve it and which way makes sense in your brain. Like I said, with our high kids, our low kids, our highs go traditionally to the algorithm. With our lower kids are going to the pictures and the dots and the arrays and all of this. And both answers at the end of the day are right. There isn't a wrong answer per se in terms of the way you solve it. And that's what my philosophy as an administrator is. And I can speak to one of my teachers and student teachers that are here tonight, and they know that I am not just preaching to the choir here. I live it, breathe it, and if they need it, we get it, because I think it's more important that they understand.
My question then kind of follows that. So you purchased all these materials. So how do you incorporate that with your current math adoption that you use? Is it an extra time a day? Do you have staff development? Like, how do you incorporate that with your math curriculum?
So how do we incorporate hands-on and manipulatives? So my guiding philosophy is that a curriculum does not drive what we teach or how we teach or when we teach. We are guided and really ruled by the standards. So using the manipulatives infused to teach those standards, I've given my teachers permission to say, you know what, if we use Go Math. I don't know what everyone else uses. But if it is not meeting your students' needs, if it is not making sense to your students, then don't use it. At the end of the day, the standards drive instruction, not the curriculum.
How do you ensure during a class of several different grades within the same classroom, how do you ensure that those students are able to hit all the necessary standards before they transition to the next set of, like, let's say it's first through third, then like fourth through sixth, how do you ensure they hit all those before they jump to fourth?
So I'm not sure if that there's actually 2 points. How do we ensure that they meet the standards, and how do we assess to ensure that we know that they've met the standards? I think there's 2 kind of levels there. So first of all, when the students come in every year, we do just a baseline to kind of see where they're at. And then the standards, again, drive the instruction so the teachers know. So if our students maybe are high, we have some Ks that come in, they already know how to read, they know how to write. And if you just put them on the kindergarten standards, they would die and we would have lots of behavior problems. So they're moved to where their ability is. It's a developmental program, and I'm not going to tell you it's easy. My teachers work really, really hard to individualize the instruction for those kids. They do provide core instructional time for each grade level. So kinder gets a time of core instructional time, and our first graders are taught independent skills where they're working on math, manipulatives, or games, or reading, and we have lots of volunteers that are coming in to help them out. And then in the afternoon, when our little guys go home, because our little guys in multi-age are half day, our first graders are getting core instruction in math and reading and language arts. And again, that small group individualized based on those kids. So if we have a first grader that needs that support in the kinder, they might do some kindergarten lessons as well, but then they also get exposed to that first grade lesson in the afternoon. So there's the ability to really do their intervention per se with their classmates as well, and they don't really notice the difference. We don't really say, oh, you're in kinder, so you can only get this, or in first grade, and we kind of move them back and forth. It's very fluid within those classrooms. One of our parents is actually here tonight as well, and probably can attest to that. But over the course of the 4 years, they are assessed and met, and then for the writing, especially for the first, second, and third graders, they do that all together. So because we're writers workshop, what they do is the little guys may not have the same expectation for what they're producing, but they're exposed to prepositions, nouns, adjectives, verbs, even as low as kindergarten. And so they're getting that higher level instruction. And then we meet with them in small group to ensure that the instruction meets their needs and they're still able to move forward. Is that kind of? Okay.
So how do you get so much and effectively ignore all of the requirements, for example, science and studies, where we have to build in the vocabulary that will propel other
Science, yeah. How do we do not ignore the question being science, social studies. So across even those multi-age, science and social studies is taught in a 4-year rotation. And so instead of just having like, okay, all Ks are only going to get this social studies or this science, it's a 4-year program. So over the course of those 4 years, they're exposed to the concepts and science and learnings of all 4 grade levels. So community, neighborhoods, I don't remember what second and third is for some reason, all the way up. And then in 4th, 5th, and 6th, When we have California, American, and then ancient civilizations, they teach them in a rotation. So they get all of those standards are met, and science as well. They do a whole year of, rather than saying like a little bit of life, a little bit of physical, a little bit of earth, they'll do a whole year of earth science. They'll do a whole year of life, a whole year of physical science. So they're focused. So over the course of those 3 years, they're still getting all those standards met and exposed and hands-on. And their collaborative learning is across grade levels. So they do groupings all year long. So in our upper grade, it might be two sixth graders, a fourth grader, a fifth grader, all working together on those projects in science and social studies. And then writing is taught the same ways in K3. They get exposed to all of the concepts. What they're expected to produce is at their grade level. And if they're above grade level, they just keep going.
Yes. And then I'll come. So I'm just burning to ask this question. So, Jill and Amelia, what would you say? Because you have an audience of folks, some of whom will be the teachers of your students at some point in the future, right? Very likely. What do you want to say to your students, future teachers, about the students you teach and what you see from them and what you hope their future teachers see in them?
Okay, what I hope to see in my future students' teachers is teachers that accept them where they're at and help build them and grow them into better human beings. My children, although they have such unique and sometimes strange needs, they are amazing learners and they can soak it up in ways we can't even comprehend. Stuff gets told back to us in ways that we just were not expecting, but they're listening, they're learning, they're watching, and just take them from where you get them and help them blossom.
So with my student population, my biggest goal has always been to teach independence. Because with my kids, my students, a lot of people tend to have sympathy for them or they want to do things for them. And it's to teach others to give them that independence and let them be independent to show what they have. And one of the pictures that Dr. Ye has shown was of my student putting Unifix cubes around to show the perimeter of an area. And in that day, I'm not going to lie, I was crying and I was amazed that he did that without using a grid, without just simple remembering the day before what we had talked about and discussed. And like Jill said, I just gave him the tools out there. Show me how you're going to find the perimeter. 3 of the other students got a grid and they started tracing, but he didn't. He went to go get the Unifix cubes and showed me how to do the perimeter. And he left me just, I had to step away because I knew then that he was showing me how he understood it. And that's what I need teachers to see with my students, to let them have that independence and not to be afraid to give them that independence.
So this shift in mathematics brings a lot of anxiety, and not just with kids, but with other teachers. You can hear it in this room and with families. I teach high school, so clearly they get really upset when I don't give them the answer right away. So my question for you is, how do you promote that shift, not just with your kids, but with the people in the building around you and with the parents of kids coming in who are like, I don't like this Common Core stuff. I know you've heard it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. I don't know if I can repeat the question. So how do we make a shift for the teachers around us in using manipulatives to teach Common Core? Is that correct? In my classroom, it's all about the understanding of the concept and being able to show it or tell it. And so when they're able to actually explain to you how they came about the answer, you know that they know it. It's amazing. They know that they know it, and they can share it with their peers. Sorry, I'm deep in thought. the thing I love about Common Core is there's not one way to get the answer. There are 10 different ways. Today we were working on more than or fewer than in a math equation, and we were supposed to draw these comparison bars, and I was so confused. And this was a first grade math lesson, and I'm confused. But when we grabbed the manipulatives and we put it on the floor and we worked it out, it all made perfect sense. Or if you relate it to something, like Catherine was showing how she relates 6 divided by 1/2 using cups of rice or candy bars. If you can relate it to something that's meaningful in their life, you've won the battle. And then they feel like the king of the world. I'm not quite sure I answered it completely, because it is hard to get other teachers to see it this way. But honestly, my kids are so prepared to move on, and they do great on the testing they're given. But the test part on a paper pencil test is very difficult for them. So I let them use manipulatives.
So just like I talked about earlier about my boys in the halls, how they always had the Pythagorean theorem as their goal. I have my daughter's IEP on Tuesday, and I was just given their goals for her. Guess what goes on there? So I've already emailed the teacher my concerns and my suggestions for goals for her, because I work with her daily in math, and I know there's going to be more challenging problems than that in math for her, because I see it daily for both of my daughters. And it's like, to explain to the teacher, I know I'm going to have a long IEP meeting on Tuesday and probably showing them other ways, because I'm showing her all these different ways and manipulate. She goes, but the teacher doesn't show me that way, but I understand what you're telling me. So it helps her to understand that. But now how do I transfer that to her teachers? Because I know that's going to be something that I'm on the next level. I am very involved in the district. I get involved in the LCAP and the DLAC and everything, because I need my daughters to have those opportunities to be successful, because right now they don't feel successful at all. And they're not enjoying school, and they're really having that anxiety. And it's a shame, because I work so hard to break that, and they're feeling it daily. So, and parents, my parents are excited to see their own kids doing math, because I do have the one kid who was able to find the perimeter. He can't count past 3, but yet he was able to display what the perimeter is. And now I got to find ways for him to be able to count those blocks around to show the perimeter. So he has a higher functionings in there. It's just, how do we get him to go to that next step?
I want to acknowledge someone in the room, Jenny Frankie. There's powerful people in this room that I want to highlight some of the things she's done with Hallie and Mark as well. I think this idea of, there's a lot of rumors out there, like this idea of rumors are truth and truth are rumors, around what the Common Core is, especially on social media, right? So this idea of, how do we support teachers and parents to understand the Common Core? The Common Core, the biggest shift is the standards for mathematical practice. That our goal isn't just to support our kids to learn content, it's to support them to learn content in ways where they get to develop the dispositions, mindset of what it means to be a math thinker and learner. I want to give props to Jenny Frankie. One of the things that they've done, one of the ways to get parents to understand the Common Core is bring the parents in. So one of the things that they did was have kids ask their parents, how do you do math in your daily life? And then look at your standards and bring them in to come and engage in the lessons with you. From, engaging in as a caterer, or someone who, works for UPS. Think about the ratio and proportions, surface area, volume lessons, different size boxes having to fit in your UPS truck. that's like serious math, right? So there's so many colleagues. I think one of the best ways I've seen across many different schools is we got to learn together. And for us to really understand the Common Core standards, we have to build and leverage, just like how we have to build and honor our children. We have to honor the knowledge that our parents have and bring them into the classroom. And you should talk to Jenny Frankie later on if you want to highlight awesomeness.
Mm-hmm. Mention that project and say the way that we've supported or built parents' capacity is by helping them see that math and is Common Core. We've been doing Common Core our whole lives. We use math in ways that we're not even aware that we use math. And a lot of times we don't stop to think about it, but every day I go to the gas station, I'm trying to figure out how much per gallon, multiplying, right, how much money I have, or if I'm gonna go to the grocery stores, how much I'm gonna spend, how many pounds. So the parents are always using the math, and we encourage them to use it with their kids daily. And that is Common Core, because that is the common knowledge that they can share with their kids, that they're not even aware that they have. So empowering parents and asking them, what is it that you don't like about Common Core? Because you're using it all the time. You're solving problems constantly in your head automatically. And that's empowering and making them see that within themselves. Then they can allow for that open mindset of like, I can, and that growth mindset, oh, well, then I get it, why we're doing this way, to develop that critical thinking piece. So thank you for asking that question. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to recognize time. We have a few minutes we can hang out, but let's thank our panel.